How many generations does wealth last? Well, I'm going to say that's up to you and your plan. The ultimate goal is to own nothing, control it all, which we're going to talk about at the end. So to get to that, let's break this down. How much money is considered to have generational wealth? And that's a very big varying number, so we're going to dig through that. Number two, what are the biggest mistakes that cause the wealth to actually disappear in the 2.3 years, which is the statistical norm of estates just falling apart, which means your grandkids aren't even going to have the chance at it. And then last, what are the proven strategies protect and grow generational wealth so it actually becomes a Rockefeller estate, that it actually grows for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and actually becomes a legacy estate. So let's dig in. A lot of this is like a lot of statistics, so I'm actually going to read through some of this stuff. So how much money is considered generational wealth? So families need between 5 and 10 million properly invested to protect the right structures to create lasting generational wealth. This amount, managed correctly, can provide financial security for up to however many years the family wants it. And then also inside of your trust, there has to be what I call the roots and the wings, meaning you need to really educate your kids and get them super involved in the generational plan. So for example, I've seen this a lot where the kids don't want to manage real estate. They don't want to manage a gas and oil portfolio. They don't want to manage an aviation portfolio. So when someone dies, they just sell it all off because the trust doesn't prohibit it. And what they really needed to do is learn how to run that asset class. That asset class is what's made the family's wealth. So to just dissipate it and get rid of it causes a massive tax burden, and then that usually liquidates most of the estate. And I see that cycle happen over and over and over. The worst pattern I see are with women where a man has a plan and they have nothing, right? The man has worked, he has control of the money, he has control of the credit cards. My most disgusting, and I'm going to say it that way, disgusting situation is when the wife, the family member, the partner has been given an allowance. Like, are you kidding? They're probably the ones managing the kids in the household. Everyone in the family, in my opinion, has to get financially literate. If you're truly going to create a legacy in an estate, everyone has to lean in, understand what assets created the wealth, how to maintain them, how to grow them, how to take loans, how to manage the debt, how to manage the asset. All of it is encompassed in a huge base of knowledge. Unfortunately, most families just go create wealth in their little track. They leave the family behind, and when they pass, it all disseminates. So let's talk through some other statistics. Why more than 90% of the wealth disappears is because of lack, again, financial education. The heirs don't know anything. The will is not enough because the wills are just about the stuff, the jewelry, the cars, the furniture, right? Could be about specific assets, but just because you divide the assets doesn't mean that you know how to manage them. So a lot of times, if you have, say, 4 kids, you're just going to say, okay, take, 100%, do 25, 25, 25, 25. Well, what if only 2 know how to run gas and oil and real estate? You coulda, shoulda, woulda gave them different assets than the other ones that don't want to learn how to manage them. Non-depletion trust can prevent heirs from draining wealth, meaning they have to put in a loan, they have to put in a business plan. I love non-depletion trust. There's also just no clear accountability. How the money can be used, when it can be used, what can it be used for. If assets can't be sold, I know in mine, I'm very clear about really, really, really cheap debt that is on 30-year fixed notes to not be paid off. The debt moves on and is inherited by the next generation to keep the base of the assets that debt bought in play. If the trust distributes money with no condition, it also leads to trust fund babies, overspending, no financial clues. And then families don't set guidelines for their heirs, and they end up losing control over 2.3 generations. The shocking statistics that 70% of their families lose their wealth the second generation, 90% lose them in the third generation. These are all statistical norms. So how do you build wealth that lasts? You put in a very strong trust with a lot of rules, not just the will. The will's the stuff. The trust is the legacy and how people need to behave. So the roots are that strong education, understanding the mission of the family, the values of the family, what are the charities of the family. Like for us, we're hugely into the Wounded Blue, into Wounded Warriors. They're a huge part of our contribution and legacy planning. Again, non-depletion trust allows loans and business lines to be taken against the trust, but not deplete the assets of the trust. So again, just a lot of, I'd say, accountability, consequences, responsibility, and then age-appropriate behavior that when they've learned a certain piece, they actually get more and they get more access. And I'm not a fan of waiting way until like your final years before you start turning this over. If your kids are ready in their 20s and 30s, start including them in this legacy planning. So it's not just your plan, it's the family's plan. The chances of this legacy then extending to their kids and then their kids, as long as that education stays intact, you're going to create a huge Rockefeller Foundation. So before I go to some final points, I want you to be here, subscribe to my channel, click that notification button so every morning you're getting that little notification bell that says listen to Loral, anywhere between 5, 10, sometimes 15 minutes. I have a topic every day, 5 days a week. We've been doing this for years and years. So if you run out of things to listen to, grab a playlist. Go up to the search bar, grab a playlist. Also binge, like plan on a weekend and just binge 25 hours. And in exchange, we give you $750 of credit towards new tuition of something that you want to have and work with us on. So anytime you have any questions, I ask you to go to askloral.com, ASKLORAL, ask a question, make a request. And a great place to ask questions if you don't know is look at your assumptions. A lot of times people will read my book. And by the way, I'm giving you 3 chapters of my Millionaire Maker in the notes below. Fill out the gap analysis, call our office and say, I want to talk about this trust. I want to talk through how your team here at Integrated Wealth can help you put together a very glued together master plan, masterpiece, versus this scattered plan with a bunch of segregated experts, and you hope it's working. What's the price worth for you to have absolute, I know it's going to work? That's the value of working with our organization and our community, which again, you got to start training their kids early. If you don't have my kids, makeyourkidsmillionaires.com. It's checklists of everything from between 0 and 20, what you coulda, shoulda, woulda done, and start really bringing in that education. Also grab my Millionaire Maker game. There's a discount link in the show notes below for the game. So go grab a game and put financial literacy at the cornerstone of your family. Make it part of the roots, the goal setting, of your family and your beneficiaries. My kids have been setting goals, that's the wings, and getting very purposeful leaders out of your kids. I mean, how you do anything is how you do everything. And a lot of you families, your head's been down the whole time. It hasn't occurred to you that this is something important that you need to stop and start integrating into your life. It's not just something you stop one day and all of a sudden it magically appears. It's something you're going to grow into and grow through it. So let's go to the last point. So the Rockefeller principle is what we're going for, which is own nothing, control it all. How does that happen? So your companies will own it, held in trust, and you get to control the company. So you get to control the P&Ls, the balance sheets, the cash flow management. As you decide on who your beneficiaries and heirs are, you put them on the bank account. So at least the flow of the cash doesn't stop as you are heading towards your end-of-life goals and strategies for your trust. Make sure as you're putting your trust together, and I love these conversations with my clients, is what are the rules? Are they going to have non-depletion section of the trust? Are there going to be business plans? Are there certain assets they can and can't buy? And what do you never want sold? And how long do you want some of these assets held? So whatever your questions are, again, go to askloral.com. We're there 24/7 to answer any question, make a request. We'll talk to you tomorrow.